Hello everybody, this is Ogre Boy, and I'm going to be doing my top 10 favorite horror movies of the 1990s. I had kind of been putting off doing decade lists for the past few weeks because I've been so busy with work and everything, so I decided starting today I'm going to try to start working on some of these decade lists. This list is going to be my favorite horror movies from the 1990s. Before I get going, I'd like to give a few honorable mentions to ones that aren't going to make this list. Bride of Chucky, Child's Play 3, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3, Psycho 4, I Know What You Did Last Summer. Those are all movies that I liked quite a bit that I just couldn't fit on here. But I'm going to go ahead and get going on this. Starting off at number 10 is the original Leprechaun. I really liked this one a lot as a kid, and everything. It was one that I used to watch all the time when I was a kid, but it's not one of my most favorite horror movies anymore. I do still like it, but to me, it just doesn't hold up as much as it did back then. I think it's just an alright movie and everything. Warwick Davis was great and everything, and it had some decent kills. It just wasn't like a really, really great one. So it's a lot lower than it would have been probably if I had done this list back in the early 2000s when I was kind of starting to watch horror movies. But Leprechaun is still a really fun movie and everything. It's one of the better ones of the 90s. So it's number 10. And number 9 is Urban Legend. This one is one that when I saw it the very first time, I was like highly disappointed in it and everything. And I rewatched it a couple years ago, and I really enjoyed it a lot more. It has a really good cast with Joshua Jackson. There's cameos by Danielle Harris and Brad Dourif. Robert Englund's in here. Jared Leto. It has a lot of really good people in it and everything. This one does feel like it's kind of like a Scream knockoff. I mean, back in the late 2000s, after Scream came out and blew everybody away, a lot of horror movies tried to replicate its formula and everything, and they all kind of had like this similar feel and everything. But I think out of the ones that were kind of copying Scream, this one was probably my favorite one. So it's number 9. And number 8 is Stephen King's It. Now this one I know technically is a mini-series. It was released in 2 parts in 1990, but I'm counting it as a movie, just because this was like kind of an iconic horror film that I used to watch all the time as a kid. I mean, most kids that grew up in the 90s love this movie, and I do still really like it. It hasn't aged real well, and it's not as, I don't like it near as much as I did as a kid, but I still do like it quite a bit and everything, mainly because Tim Curry was so amazing as Pennywise, and whenever I think of Pennywise, he's always the one that I think of. I don't have anything against Bill Skarsgård or anything, but I just absolutely love him as Pennywise. He's just absolutely perfect. So, it is number 8, and number 7 is Wes Craven's New Nightmare. Now, personally, out of the 2 Freddy movies that came out in the 90s, I liked Freddy's Dead more personally, but I'm gonna give it to Wes Craven's New Nightmare because it's more of a horror movie than Freddy's Dead. Freddy's Dead was more of a comedy, so I decided to give it to New Nightmare instead. But I really love this movie. I thought Wes Craven's directing was great. I love like the meta storytelling that kind of was before Scream and everything, because most people give Scream the credit for being the one to have the meta humor and stuff, or meta storytelling and stuff, but this one It's just a really, really great movie. I absolutely love Wes Craven's New Nightmare, and I think that Freddy was probably this had one of like the creepiest portrayals of Freddy and everything. I thought Robert Englund was really great, and it was also cool seeing all these actors from the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise show up playing themselves and everything, and it just is a really good movie. So Wes Craven's New Nightmare is number 7, and number 6 is The Silence of the Lambs. This is another one that I just absolutely loved when as a kid and everything. It was one of the first horror movies I ever watched. And this one kind of could also be counted as like a suspense thriller movie more than a horror movie, but it's just a really great movie. Jodie Foster is great as Clarice, and Anthony Hopkins is iconic as Hannibal Lecter, and he's just really great. Even though he doesn't have a whole lot of screen time, every time he's on screen, he steals every scene he's in, and he's just absolutely great too. And I really love Silence of the Lambs. It's one that I still enjoy as much now as I used to. So it's number 6, and number 5 is Candyman. This one took me a really long time to get to see. I always wanted to watch it as a kid. It was actually one I didn't see until just recently, and everything. But I had always wanted to see this one as a kid, and everything. It just took me forever to even be able to find it, and I finally got to see it a couple years ago, and I just absolutely love this movie. It also is kind of, it has the slasher stuff in it, but it's more of a suspense movie, kind of like how Silence of the Lambs is too. It's kind of like a mystery movie where a woman's investigating the stuff that to do with Candyman and stuff, and it's just a really good movie. And Tony Todd is just absolutely perfect as Candyman. I like him in a lot of stuff he does, but I really loved him as Candyman. I thought he was great. I haven't seen any of the sequels to it yet. I'm hoping to get to see those soon. Once I do, I'll probably be doing reviews for all of the Candyman movies, but yeah, so it's number 5, and number 4 is the original Scream. I know most people probably would have this as their number 1 favorite horror movie of the decade, and I don't deny that it's one of the best. It's a really, really great movie. Wes Craven did a great job directing it, and Kevin Williamson's writing is amazing. I love the dialogue in this movie and the meta humor and stuff, and it just is a really, really great movie. It was really iconic, and it kind of brought the slasher genre back in the late 90s, because it had been on a decline throughout most of the early 90s. So I really, really do love this movie, and I love the impact it had on the horror genre and everything. I really wish that we would get a new slasher movie that would kind of bring back the slasher genre nowadays, because I miss the slasher genre. But I really did love Scream. I'd also like to give a shout out to Scream 2. I almost put it on this list and everything, but I decided only have one from the franchise instead of having two to make room for other movies. So, but I did like Scream 2 a lot too, so I wanted to give that an honorable mention. But yeah, so the original Scream is number 4, and number 3 is The People Under the Stairs. This is one of the first horror movies or one of the ones I watched for the first time last year during my 31 Days of Horror in October, and I just absolutely was blown away by this movie. I thought it was absolutely great. It did have some humor in it, but it has a lot of creepiness to it, and the whole cast in here is really great, especially the kid that plays the main character. I can't remember what his name is, but he was absolutely great in this movie, and the villains and stuff in this movie were great. It was really crazy. It took all kinds of different turns and stuff that I wasn't expecting, and I just absolutely love this movie. So The People Under the Stairs is number 3, and number 2 is Misery. I absolutely love Misery. It just is a great classic Stephen King movie. Kathy Bates is excellent as Annie Wilkes, and I absolutely loved Rob Reiner's directing. I think he did a really, really great job. James Caan was great in this movie as well, and everything. I think this is one of the rare exceptions for a horror movie that actually got Oscar nominations. And I think that Kathy Bates even won an Oscar for her performance, and it was one of those times where it really, really deserved it. And the horror genre has a lot of those kind of performances that, personally, I think are good enough that they could win Oscars and everything, but they never get nominated. But this one did, and it deserved the awards that it got nominated for. And it's just a really, really great movie. The tone and the isolation setting and stuff, it just makes the movie all that much better. So Misery is number 2, and my number 1 favorite horror movie of the 1990s is Child's Play 2. This is also my favorite movie in the Child's Play franchise, and just one of my favorite slasher movies in general. I just absolutely love Child's Play 2. It's tons of fun from start to finish. We get to see Chucky throughout the whole movie. He's cracking it, doing his one-liners, and it has some of his best one-liners, and it has some of the best kills in the franchise too. One of my personal favorite kills is when he kills the teacher with the yardstick. It's just like really, it's kind of cheesy, but it's great. And like the guy getting killed in the factory with the doll eyes being inserted into his head, that was awesome kill. And this is the one where we get to meet Kyle, and she's a really cool character. Alex Vincent was great as Andy again, and I just absolutely love Child's Play 2. It's one of my favorite horror movies of all time, and easily my favorite horror movie of the 90s. So let me know in the comments what your favorite horror movies of the 90s are. You can just tell me some of your favorites, or if you want to do your own top 10 list in the comments and tell me 10 of your 10 favorite movies of that decade, feel free to do that. I hope you enjoyed this video, and have a good day, everybody.
This is the song that doesn't end. Yes, it goes on and on, my friend.
That's enough, guys.
Some people started singing it, not knowing what it was, and they'll continue singing it forever just because this is the